Well, thank you all for coming. Good to see you all. Didn't know when we were going to have this, when or if we were going to have this. I'm excited to. It's kind of the kickoff to the year for me as much as anything else. We didn't really have a spring wrap up. We didn't really have a Pac-12 media day. We didn't have any of those. So good to get us started here. I'd love to hear questions. First, I'll say thanks. I've talked to some of you periodically, a few months, but the quick recap, obviously, as being part of the Pac-12 working group for COVID issues and the NCAA working group for COVID issues, been involved with a lot of conversations, and I'm still not just comfortable, but still proud of this conference for how we've operated over the last 5 months. Really trusting our doctors and trusting their advice, listening to our university presidents and the many things that they have to deal with, which is so much more than just athletics. Getting to the point where we push back the season. Many talked about the heart abnormality, which even our doctor at the time, we might be overreacting, but we're gonna choose caution here because we all saw the big article on ESPN.com and other experts weighing in. And the fact that our testing, we were testing once a week and things were going well. But in order for us to participate in this ridiculously wonderful sport that we love, we had talked about going to 3 times a week testing, and there were still holes. There were still possibilities because we weren't going to be able to actually create a bubble like the NBA. There were still holes in that 3 times a week, and it would be great if we got to daily testing. And we'd heard from many people that might not be available till maybe November. So a January start date where we had more answers about the heart abnormality. We had more answers on this virus, which we're still learning a lot about, but the ability to test more frequently and get those rapid results back so that we could actually assure ourselves that everybody stepping on the field, everybody stepping in the weight room would be virus free. A lot of credit to this goes to Larry Scott striking this deal with Quidel, which accelerated our timeline. Our doctors had once again, I'm not telling you all you did anything, things you haven't heard recently, but our doctors have been investigating the heart abnormality. They feel so much more comfortable now with so much more information. And now an issue that is still significant for individuals. We believe in our testing capabilities for heart issues and the fact that it's seemed to be even more rare than we initially thought. So we feel better about where we are with the heart abnormality. We feel much better about our testing, getting to daily testing, which has not begun yet, but we're looking to hopefully start that before or at the very least when we start training camp. But we feel good about our process. Difficult for us being a quarter school and the way that when we push the season back. I told our team the other night that I'm not going to absolve myself. It would have been a lot easier if we kept everybody here. But many of my leaders on my football team came to me virtually, honestly, came to me and said, "Hey, coach, like we worked extremely hard. We had basically half of our time in the summer to get ready for, we thought, a regular start season. So our guys came in June, pushed themselves really, really hard to get ready. We pushed the season back. They felt better about it, but they're still working really hard. And once we pushed it back to January, many of them said, Coach, we need a break. We were working at such a hard clip. We don't start school for 2-3 weeks. So that's why a lot of our guys went home, gave our guys a break. Same thing happened at Washington. Same thing happened at Oregon. Same thing happened at UCLA. Other quarter schools. Hey, you know what? You guys take a break. We're not starting until January, and we're not starting school. So a lot of guys said, hey, I'm going to go train at home. I said, great. We'll get you back a month, 2 months before the season starts. So that's fine. So other guys went places. At the time, it made a lot of sense. Still think it was the right decision for the information we had. If I knew that we were coming back, obviously we would have kept everybody here, as would the other universities. But at the time, it made a lot of sense. That's what we did. So we had to have a lot of adjustments. We put a lot of stress on our president and provost on a closed campus, as many other campuses are closed as well, and trying to find a way to bring everybody back smartly and safely. We've had to answer a lot of questions and still working with the county on fine tuning exactly how we're going to move forward. So we don't have all the answers there. But we've been very upfront and honest and open with our county. Our county's been very direct with us as far as the mandates, because we're still in the midst of a pandemic. We've had to deal with the issues from other conferences, both in the recruiting space, and then just people lobbing Molotov cocktails at our conference. And I'm fine with that. I have no issue with that. People can do and say whatever they want. A lot of it has a recruiting base, right? They're trying to recruit some of the same guys that we are. So they're taking shots at us. That's fine. I can look my guys in the eye and say everything that we've done in our conference has been for their health and their safety. And for nothing else. We're not giving into pressure from other conferences. We're not giving into pressure from other groups. Had to endure the fallout from one of the most ridiculous articles I've ever seen in 14 years here at Stanford by one of the guys on this call. And we've dealt with that. We've answered the questions in recruiting. We've answered the questions about our university's commitment to student athletes, their athletic endeavors, as well as their academic endeavors. And I stand firm on the things that we've done and how we've done it. Has it been perfect? Absolutely not. Nothing's been perfect once this pandemic started. But I feel great about what we've done. I feel great about how we got to where we are. I feel great about the lead time that we have to get ready for the season. Would I love another couple of weeks? Absolutely. But is November 7th doable? Absolutely. So once again, our guys are back. Our guys are training. Our guys are preparing. And we'll hopefully start training camp with the testing and all the bells and whistles and try to make it as close to normal as possible. So with all that said, I'll open up for questioning.
Reminder to please raise your hand in the participants tab. First question is from Brandon Marcello at 24/7 Sports.
Hey, Coach. Nice to chat with you and be able to chat football. I guess I'm kind of hijacking the conference call here because I got a non-Stanford question, though it is somewhat related. I spoke to KJ Costello yesterday just about his long journey from all the injuries he had to deal with last year and the conversation you had with him near the end of the year when you told him you loved him and you're sorry you weren't able to go to a bowl game. And he said, it took him some time through the pandemic to even kind of work through his injuries and realize that maybe he won't even play, maybe he will play. And to see what he did in that opener against LSU, I'm sure had to make you a little bit happy. Just what are your thoughts on KJ from that moment when you last saw him to what he was able to do this past week?
First of all, thank you very much for the question, the way that you phrased it. You've got now a good understanding of my relationship with KJ. I said this last year. Last year was one of the toughest years professionally for me that I've had. And at the heart of a lot of that was how bad I felt for KJ. Not more so than other guys on the team, but different with your quarterback, different with your two-time captain. The guy he came off a 3,500-yard passing year, second most yards in the history of the school, 29 touchdowns, choosing between going pro or coming back. He chose to come back. He wanted to win a Pac-12 championship with his team. He wanted to get in the playoff, and we believe we had the weapons to do it. And then just to see him never really ever reach what he's capable of. He was probably healthy for one game last year, and that was Arizona, and he put on a show. And I still don't think he was 100%, but that was a lot of willpower for KJ. So, yeah, I've watched two games from start to finish so far this year. One was Duke Notre Dame, because I'm so proud of Devery Hamilton for the same reason. He fought injuries for 2 years, and to see him go back out there and play tackle and be healthy and play well, I couldn't be happier for him. And the other game was this past weekend, watching KJ, once again, healthy, confident, and an offense where they're going to throw the ball, right? Mike Leach is just not going to run it. So we all knew he was going to have an outstanding year, didn't know it was going to be a 600-yard passing day, but had a feeling that that's the kind of season that they were going to have together. Mike Leach has thrown for a lot of yards with a lot of quarterbacks, and very few have had the arm talent that KJ Costello has. So we figured it was going to be a special year for him, and a great jump-off year for him to push himself hopefully into that first round of the NFL draft.
Next question is from Kyle Bonagora with ESPN.com.
Hey, David. Excuse me. How much, I guess, when would you guys need to have the cohort rule lifted by either the state or the county in order to practice enough heading into a November 6th or 7th start?
Good question. First of all, good to see you, Kyle. I think you can still grow it. Some of us can't grow it anymore. Yeah, the thing for me is hopefully by the time we start training camp. Before that would be great because there's some things we'd love to do, 1-on-1, 7-on-7, some mirror drills, etc. that we can operate in closer proximity. There are a lot of things that we can do right now before that, where we're still preparing the guys, training the guys, going through a lot of drills, keeping our distance, but still working hard, pushing ourselves in our outdoor weight room. But as we get closer to training camp, we'd love to be able to do a little bit more. So that's in the hand of the state, which will then transition to our county. Our county will communicate with us. Our county has expressed the willingness to work with us, which we're very appreciative of. We understand the difficulties that they have in trying to find a way to play this sport, to play soccer, to play volleyball in the middle of a pandemic that and a virus that is transmitted through breathing and talking and spitting, and that's what happens in sports. So I don't take it lightly, the work that's going in from our medical professionals, both on state level, county level, and at our university, to make sure that we give our student athletes an opportunity to play the game and play it safely. So yeah, the short answer to your question is hopefully by the time we start training camp, so we can actually practice as a full team.
Do you have an expectation on when that the state guidelines you expect to have some sort of amendment to them? Has that been communicated, a timeline at all on that?
I have a relatively big office when it comes to the athletic department. When it comes to state and county issues, I have a very, very small office, and those conversations do not happen in my office. So I will await word from those big offices on when and if we can augment what we're doing. Until then, we're just going to work hard and push ourselves and do everything we can that we're allowed to do for the time being.
All right, I have one more related to this. San Jose State's in the same county. They're supposed to start October 24th. I mean, their circumstances are obviously different than yours, but is that a realistic timeline for a team to be able to prepare? Could you guys be able to play a game October 24th right now with the restrictions in place?
I think that would be tough for us. As I said before, multiple universities, multiple football programs in our conference, we'd send our guys home. We had transitioned from a preseason training mode to an off-season training mode. So we needed more time to flip back into the preseason training mode to prepare our guys for the stress and strain of playing the game. And that would have been too tight of a turnaround for us. Other universities, I know they didn't send their guys home. They had them more there. I'm very close with multiple people at San Jose State, let alone Kyle, Brent Brennan, the head coach. So I know that they've been training, they've been pushing, they've been working. They may be probably in a better place than we were just because their guys were there. So yeah, I can't truly compare. For us, that would have been way too soon.
Got it. Thank you.
Next question is from Steve Kroner with the San Francisco Chronicle.
Coach, how are you?
Great.
Good. What has you most excited about the next 5.5 weeks, and what has you most concerned?
Boy, I've answered that question. This is my 10th year. Every year, it has a lot different meaning.
Yeah,
a lot different meaning now. My biggest concern are COVID issues. That's my biggest concern. We've got student athletes that I know we've got a lot of rules for them, a lot of rules that they have to follow. But I also know that you can follow all the rules, right? I see somebody walking behind you with a mask on. You can follow all the rules, and this virus still finds its way into people's bodies. It's a pandemic. It happens. So we can take all the precautions. We can try to do everything right, whether it's someone makes a mistake or a bad decision or just serendipity. Who knows how things happen. We've had people that have traveled and contracted the virus and travel. We've heard about visiting teams go on the road and come, and somewhere between planes, trains, and automobiles and the travels. So that's probably my biggest concern. It has nothing to do with football. We're going to get whatever we can out of this season. Whatever happens is going to happen. We're going to earn whatever we get. That's probably my concern. What has me most excited, my initial response to that question, is playing football. That's like has me most excited. I think we've got a really good football team. I am so excited to see what these guys can do, because the guys that were hurt last year are healthy and fired up and ready to go. And maybe even this extended time probably helped a couple more guys get a little bit more healthy. So I'm excited to see full speed. We're going to miss Walker Little. I'm excited for his prospects, and I believe he's got a chance to go in that first round, maybe even higher in that first round. But as far as the rest of the guys coming back, we feel great about their health and their determination to have a much better year than we had a year ago.
Thank you.
Next question is from RJ Abadia with the Bootleg.
So, Coach, we've talked a little bit before about kind of expectation. Obviously, the rules are out the window kind of this year, but as you move forward towards your first game, have you had any kind of conversation with players, or just in your mind, about when is a reasonable cutoff in terms of opt-out decisions or things that they might want to do? So basically, when do you expect to feel comfortable to say, this is the roster and these are our guys going forward?
I don't really have an answer for that, because an opt-out could happen at any time. All I've told them is these are my guys. I absolutely love them. I'm gonna do everything I can to help them individually and collectively. And if something changes during the course of the year and someone in conversations with their family decide to opt out for COVID reasons, then great, completely understand. Those that are not opting out, we have a lot of rules for them. We have a lot of guidelines for them, a lot of expectations on them. Maybe so much anybody we've ever had at this age, things we ask them to do. So very understandable. I have no issues with people who opt out or choose not to participate, because we are in crazy times right now. So I'm not going to say that this is who we have, et cetera. All I ask is the guys communicate with me, let me know, and so we can prepare.
Next question comes from Jacob Rayburn with Cardinal Sports Report.
Hey, Coach. I'm working on a story about the virtual visits that you guys have put together over the last few months, how they've evolved. And I've heard a lot about all the different people you guys have pulled in to help with those, and it sounds like it's become, pretty complex. But I'm curious to hear from your perspective of what role do you see those virtual visits playing in a non-COVID world, which eventually is going to happen, one hopes and assumes?
Well, you and I had a conversation a while ago, and I still say this. I think the COVID issues have probably hurt our program more than any other program in America, because a Stanford visit is what hooks a lot of guys. It's the ability to work on campus, 75-degree weather year round, and then meeting all the people that you meet on our campus and seeing not just the beauty, but all that we have athletically and academically, motivates those guys to take those AP courses and those standardized tests and do well in those deals and write those 5 essays for our application. So without having that, we've had to try to show them as much of our campus as we can. And part of the draw are the people, right? The professors, the academic resource people, yes, the coaches, but then also their potential teammates. So we've got a lot of guys, and I'm so proud of our guys. We don't give them a script, and our guys videotaped a lot of things and sent them to us. I still say videotape, I'm an old guy, right? But they recorded a lot of things and sent them to us. Some of our NFL guys have sent things back to talk about their time at Stanford and what Stanford's done for them. Now, hopefully in the future where we can have visits, all the things that we've accumulated, and give a lot of credit to Mike Eubanks and his staff and the recruiting office and our coaches and their time. But hopefully now we can use that as more of a hook to come and not the replacement of visiting. Right now it has to be a replacement for visiting, which there's no replacement. But now hopefully in the future, a lot of those things that we've been able to accumulate, we can use that to say, hey, here's what you're going to see when you do come. And there's still so much more on our campus.
And I had another question about something Walker Little brought up when we asked about the young guys and his expectation for specifically the offensive line room for this season. He brought up the point that the freshmen are going to have more time than usual to get ready for a season because of everything. And it may end up only being, a couple of months, and it's not the same as if someone early enrolled and had like a spring or whatever. But do you expect maybe the freshmen to be a bit more prepared, maybe mentally, if not physically, for the season because of the later start?
That is a possibility. We've been meeting with all the guys for so much. We've probably spent more time with our freshmen than we've ever spent with them before, as far as our virtual meetings and watching film and putting in plays and talking about technique. These last few weeks, being able to get on the field a couple of times a week with them and go through drills and go through football movements, et cetera, and teach them a little bit more. We typically don't have an opportunity to do that before we start training camp. So when we start training camp, our freshmen are going to be slightly ahead of, at the very least between the ears, previous freshman classes. So the fact that we did start late, the fact that we've done more with them may have helped. Some of those guys have come in and kind of gotten over the initial shock of being a college football player in the weight room in particular. That's usually the first place they get it, where they've gotten a little bit stronger. They kind of know how to lift now, which is the first thing we have to teach them. So yeah, there may be more of an opportunity for some of these guys to get on the field. The fact that this year doesn't count towards eligibility at all, I think helps a ton, so we can spot play some of these guys. The other thing that's really interesting though is we actually have a pretty deep team now that everybody's healthy. And a lot of guys are back that had significant playing time last year. So I'm excited. I'm excited to know that we have some depth, that we have some youth, and we have some experience, and it's a great combination.
Next question is from Paul Meyerberg with USA Today.
Hey, David. Good to see you.
Too.
So you've long been a proponent of having every conference play the same number of league games. And I know that's obviously an impossibility in 2020. Just curious from your perspective, given the fact that you're going to see such a wide spread of league games across the Power Five, how do you think college football can equitably and fairly choose its Final Four and its national champion when you see that juxtaposition across each of those leagues?
Well, I'll say the easy answer is the one thing that's not going to happen, which is expand the playoff. Whether it's 6 or 8 at some point in time, it's going to happen. We all know it. We all believe it. We're just going to do it very, very slowly and methodically. But it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that actually seems fair and equitable. To have a very difficult in-conference schedule like we always have, with a difficult out-of-conference schedule that we always have, and then to be compared with conferences that have a lesser out-of-conference schedule and fewer conference games. There's an inequity there. The only thing that should matter is, did you fight really, really hard your entire season to win your conference? If you did, you should get a ticket to the dance. Now, outside of those 5, now who deserves it? You have to look at those independents. You have to look at the number 2 teams in some of those conferences and look at the road that they travel. That's the only thing that truly makes sense, and I believe eventually we will get there. Whether it's 6 or 8 teams, I think it will eventually happen. That would be the only thing that makes all kinds of sense now, because you'll have some teams who have a 12-game schedule, but they may play 10. You have some that have an 8-game schedule, they may play 6. We may have some in our conference that have a 6-game schedule or 7-game schedule technically and play 5 or 4. There's no way to truly tell with no crossover games, or very few crossover games from conference to conference. So the playoff committee is going to have a difficult job ahead. And I don't envy them. I know they are conscientious human beings. I know they'll do their best job they can, but eventually we're just going to have to expand it because it's the only thing that makes sense.
Next question comes from Troy Clarity with the TreeCast.
Coach, first of all, good to see you start a press conference without giving us a lengthy injury report. And hopefully that becomes a habit as we get into the season. Purely anecdotal, but just the first few weeks of the college football season so far, it seems that places that really deal more with their home field advantage have really struggled. We certainly saw it at LSU and other places where teams that have such a home field advantage with a big time fans there have struggled, if not outright lost. Obviously, no fans at Pac-12 home games this year, assuming that the Pac-12 kind of keeps its rotation with the division games, obviously with the side of them. Stanford's scheduled to play at Oregon and at Washington this fall, at least as of right now. Perhaps they keep that. How could that potentially affect the dynamic of some things that we see around the conference with no fans allowed, especially if you have to go to Eugene or Seattle?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that exact same thing since probably the day after we announced that we're playing football, is to go into those stadiums and actually hear. It just never happened before. So I think that kind of evens the playing field to a certain degree. I still think there is a home field advantage just because it is your home and everybody wants to defend their house. But not having a noise issue, I think helps a lot. It takes away maybe a little bit from the home field advantage. But at the same time, those are still going to be tough venues to play in. Those are two really good football teams. But I will enjoy not having to crank up the crowd noise during the week of practice before we play those games and working on hand signals, et cetera. I think that's only going to be a benefit in our favor.
Next question, back to RJ Abadia with the bootleg.
So, Coach, you've talked about the fact that there's no substitute for having guys on campus to visit you guys. And you've also talked about the fact that there's no substitute for getting out to see guys play. Given that you've been given no choice with the extended dead period, and you have to offer and you have to evaluate guys, can you talk about the way you've adapted your process with given no other alternative due to the dead period?
Without giving away state secrets,
Yes.
The bottom line for us is we're just looking for Stanford guys. And there's an academic component that is vital to us that is regardless of pandemic. There are academic expectations that we put on these guys, and we try to put it on them early and let them know what they need to do as far as taking AP courses and honors courses and challenging themselves academically like Stanford demands. So that hasn't changed. Getting them a feel for us and who we are is probably the biggest thing for us, which answered the previous question with our virtual visits. And us being able to evaluate, it's probably been glad this didn't happen 10 years ago, right? Where we had a difficult time finding film of games. So for us now, we're able to, where we have different contracts with different companies, you can search online in a lot of high schools and see a game get streamed. So we're still able to watch guys and evaluate guys, both guys in their senior year, but then also those that are playing their junior years. So evaluation process has been hampered a little bit, but we're still able to see and watch guys play. Still not like seeing them live. That's one of the things for me, especially the quarterbacks. I learned from a guy many, many years ago before I became a head coach, just in recruiting. Used to talk about Joe Tiller. Joe Tiller had a philosophy of seeing quarterbacks throw live. You got to see a guy throw live to really get a feel for him. That's what has really hurt this for me. This go round here of evaluating, and particularly quarterbacks. But for the most part, everybody else we're able to see a lot. A lot of these guys have still done workouts. We're able to see those workouts. Those things get put online. So the evaluation process has changed, but to a certain degree, we're still starting with the academics, and then we're still being able to get some things on our screens that we can evaluate.
And just in terms of recruiting overall, are there any silver linings to the way you've had to recruit and interact with recruits that, I don't know, I guess silver linings would be the question. Is there anything out of this that has kind of given you a different perspective or something you might want to take with you as you move forward through the next recruiting cycles?
Well, I would probably ask you the same thing. If you think there are any silver linings, based on your take on some of the things that we've done, I'd like to hear your answer to that. But for me, silver lining wise, I think I'll say this, and this is a bad comparison, and some people may not like it or get it. And my wife probably will not like it either. The first 3 years of my relationship with my wife was long distance. And when you're long distance, you're forced to communicate, forced to talk. The silver lining for us now is like, we don't have a choice. We can't visit and guys can't visit us. So there's a lot of conversations like we're having right now where you're talking to people face to face, you're communicating. So I think we're having an opportunity to get to know these guys maybe a little bit better than before. So much of our previous is like, we got to get you to campus. We got to get you to campus. And now we can't get you to campus. So let's get you on the phone. Let's talk. Let's talk about what we have. Let's make sure we know what you're looking for. Let's talk to your family. Let's get your whole family on the Zoom. Let's hear questions from everybody. So for us, I think one of the silver linings is I love our process. I've continued to love our process. I like the way that we've approached this difficult situation, but I think we're getting to know our guys even better than we did before because we're forced to talk and communicate many times on Zoom without the prospect of getting them to come visit or visiting them.
Next question comes from Scott Reese.
Hey guys, Coach, good to see you. Glad we're finally talking football, more or less. So I imagine other parts of the country, it might be a little easier for coaches to rally the troops 100%, fade the noise. Maybe they're not worried about the virus so much and sort of approach as much normalcy as possible. A little less the case in the conference and certainly at Stanford. You've got cerebral guys who are no doubt very much aware of what's going on and may or may not have doubts about the season and this and that. I'm just wondering if you have your finger on the pulse of sort of the psychology and what's going through these guys' minds, and how do you toe the line between getting these guys completely 100% focused on football, which obviously you've got to do for 29 days to get them ready, and still keeping them aware of the things that you touched on earlier and how you've got to be vigilant and you got to be worried about this virus because it's everywhere.
Yeah, my initial answer to the question is our guys want to play. They wanted to play. They've been wanting to play. It's why they showed up here in June when they did, and pushed themselves knowing that we had a short ramp up time. They dealt with all of the testing and all the rules and regulations we gave them. We put them in a hotel. All these different things that we inconvenienced them with good reason. They put up with all of it because they want to play. They're so excited to play. So that being said, with all the things that have happened now, we're not playing. Oh, we're not playing soon. Oh, yeah, we're playing soon. All that we've put back on them now again, our guys have once again made me so proud. I say, Coach, what do we have to do? You know, how can we get to the point where we're playing football? And we say, okay, here's the path. Now you have an opt-out opportunity, right? This year doesn't count against you athletically. You don't have to play. If you want to play, here are the rules that you have to follow. And our guys have come back and said, okay, let's go. So it hasn't been an easy process, but what's at core is these guys came to Stanford to get their degrees. They came to Stanford to play great football. So when these roadblocks have come up, when these difficulties have come up, they've been dealing with them. So the big thing for me is I don't feel like I have to rally them as much because the desire to play is great. We've got emerging leaders on our football team that has been so exciting to see. Even with all this stuff going on, you know, Malik Antoine, who was already a great leader, has really even stepped up his leadership, as is Curtis Robinson, as is Jordan Fox, and a bunch of other guys have really stepped up their leadership. Drew Dahlman has stepped up his leadership on our football team. So a lot of guys, with all the stuff going on, they've kept their teammates focused and directed at getting ready to play a season.
Next question comes from Ashley Adamson with Pac-12 Network.
Hey, Coach. I imagine a lot of people, your players, staff, family, people in the Stanford Athletic Department have been leaning on you pretty hard to guide them through the roller coaster ride that has been the last 6 months. I'm just curious to know, who have you been able to lean on during this time to help guide you through it all?
Well, God, that's kind of a long list. My athletic director, Bernard Muir, has an unbelievable temperament. to handle all these difficult things that come up. My wife, of course, we give each other sanity checks periodically with all the things that are happening in the sports world, but even in our home with our kids who are distance learning and all the things that are going on in our society. My family, leaning on each other with all once again talking about social unrest and all the other things that are going on. So to always have people in your life that you can talk to about different things, I think are very, very important. I've always done something. I think I've mentioned this before to some people in this group that I think I've gotten even better at. It's a philosophy of radical acceptance. When something happens, and it's not passive, when something happens that you can't change, you have to accept it and then make decisions on what to do in your new situation. And that's happened so many times, whereas our world will change in a span of 24 hours. So now here we are. Who do I have to talk to? Who do we have to coordinate with? What's available to us? What is the county saying? What can we do? What can't we do? Okay, great. Hey guys, yesterday's plan is gone. Here's today's plan. And we've operated in that world for so long now that many of us are doing it secondhand. So spending a lot of time and emotion on something that is not available to you anymore. Our world is changing too fast for us to operate that way. So big thing is having people that we to and depend on and communicate with for support and guidance, and at the same time being nimble and ready to change on a moment's notice.
I love that. And just, I guess it's kind of a follow-up, and you kind of answered it maybe in that answer, but do you feel like you're a different coach at all today than you were in early March?
Yeah, I think so. Once again, I think as coaches, we are all schedule people, right? Every coach has a calendar, except for maybe Mike Leach, but the rest of us have a calendar that we all live by and guide our teams by. And to know that our calendars have gotten blown up so many times that we've had to adhere to more short term, saying, okay, here's what we can do this week. Let's focus our determination. And one of those things for me that's always been unnerving, not knowing what's going on down the road. But now we can't worry about that. Like we have, here's what we're doing the next 2 weeks, right? Our county, when they give us guidance, hey, great. After that, we'll be able to do a little bit more. But for now, this is what we have. So I think being able to not just handle what goes on, but now actually fight and get good right now at what we're doing, knowing that something's going to change. Whereas that before was like, hey, if something's going to change, let's not make a decision. But now we can't do that anymore. We have to make a decision what's good for now and know that something's going to change. We have to make another decision later.
Thanks, Coach.
We have time for two more. We'll start with Harold Gutman and then finish with Troy Clarity. Harold, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. I'm sorry if I missed this. If you addressed in your opening statement, I had to start third grade math class. But the scheduling arrangement, playing all your division games and the one crossover game against the South, it counts in the division standings. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, a lot of discussions on what to do scheduling wise, which I won't bore everybody with, but that started way back when in the summer. We're talking about playing potentially shorter season. It's what makes the most sense to have 3 home games and 3 away games, so everybody has the opportunity to play somewhat of a balanced schedule. Since we're trying to be the champions of the Pac-12 North, makes sense for us to play the Pac-12 North, but that would only be 5 games. So someone was going to get the short end of the stick, multiple someones, where they would have to have 3 road games and 2 home games. So it made only sense to have a crossover game, to have an even schedule, hopefully a more balanced schedule for everybody. So that makes a lot of sense. Who that crossover game is, I'm not sure. If it's not one of our Southern California partners, I'd be sad because we have such a great rivalry with USC and UCLA. But I will also understand that not everybody can be satisfied with what's going to come our way as far as the schedule is concerned. But once again, as our conferences continue to try to do, we're trying to do things that make sense. We're trying to do things that are as fair as possible, and then hopefully we'll be able to strap it up and play come November.
We'll finish with a question from Troy Clarity.
Obviously, a long way to go before kickoff, but as of this exact moment, can you give us a snapshot of what you sense the biggest strength of this team is on offense, biggest strength on defense, biggest concern on offense, and biggest concern on defense right now?
That's a great question. Strength-wise on the offensive side, my hope of what it is what we've always strived for is balance. I'm excited about our quarterback. I'm excited about the weapons he's got to throw the ball to. I'm excited about our runners. I'm excited about what we have up front, combination of our offensive line and tight ends. So hopefully we can be effective in the passing game and more effective in the running game than we were a year ago. I'm curious to see but we've got a young offensive line and a lot of young guys who got a lot of experience last year. And I'm expecting to see a huge jump from year 1 to year 2 with those guys. We've got a couple of seniors on that offensive line that I think are going to be outstanding, amongst the best in our conference and potentially in the nation. And Drew Dahlman and Foster Sorrell. Both guys are back. Both guys are hungry. Both guys are healthy and extremely talented. So we got great leadership in that room. So that's going to be a question mark for us because of all the injuries and inconsistencies we had playing so many young guys last year. And now asking those guys to make a big step. So that's a big question mark for us there. But I feel great about where we are. Defensively, I'm excited about our athleticism. From top to bottom, from the back end to the linebackers to the outside linebackers to our defensive line. As a year ago, we expect a lot of our guys up front. We don't have a lot of experience in our defensive line. We have some talent. We have some ability. We've got a couple of older guys that haven't played a lot of football and a couple of younger guys that are talented but haven't played NFL or college football yet. So now we've got an opportunity to see what those guys are made of. We love who we've recruited, and now we've got to see if we can get them to play at a high level. So that combination of athleticism and youth will be both a positive for us and maybe early in the year something we really have to watch and make sure that we can try to play at a high level.
Thank you, Coach, and thank you to everyone for joining. We will send out the audio and video of today's session after today. So thank you, and we'll be in touch about future plans.
Thanks, everybody.